Hello.
Definitely press record this time.
Touch wood.
So, you've got quite an eclectic story, I think. You've got quite a varied background, and what's led you here to the James, I think, is quite incredible, really. And so, for those who don't know, which is everyone, what is your, just sum up your background just very briefly?
Yeah, of course. So moved around quite a lot when I was younger, but originally born in Australia, and very early on was diagnosed with complex learning difficulties, which encompasses a range of things: dyslexia, dyscalculia, ADHD. That came a little bit later on in life, and nonverbal learning disorder. So yeah, my whole life up till now has just been how that doesn't necessarily define me, but how I open my own doors where a round peg was trying to fit into a square hole that wasn't working.
Yeah. So you were kind of, again, forced through the system, through the meat grinder, against your will, and you feel like you didn't have the proper support along the way.
Support from society, maybe schools. Yeah, absolutely. I was incredibly fortunate to have immense family backing and support, and it is definitely the only reason I am where I am today. My mum sacrificed her career for me. I would finish primary school and she would take me to 4 hours of tuition. That could be eye therapy and then occupational therapy across the city. And then something else, maybe it was maths tutoring because I just couldn't keep up in school. And my parents consistently being told they're doing the wrong thing because others thought they knew better, that I would never academically succeed. And in year 3 being told that we can't read her handwriting, so just give her a laptop.
I mean,
Because that solves everything.
yeah, I mean, great, get your laptop, I guess, and just there you go, sit in the corner, just forget about your sort of job.
Yeah, but not necessarily how do we actually... I think it's like when you go to the doctor's here, we don't necessarily want to find out what's causing the problem, but here's the medicine that fixes the symptoms for now. It kind of felt a little bit like that growing up of, okay, well, we can't read your handwriting, so we'll give you a laptop. And if you can just cope with that, fantastic. But again, very grateful that my parents said, no, she should probably learn how to write.
Yeah, how are you going to fill a birthday card in with a
Absolutely. I filled out a lot of birthday cards now and been told my handwriting's pretty nice. But yeah, it took an awful lot of hard work, therapy, and in and out schools. I think I've been to 11 schools now in total.
So what countries have you been to school in? Not university, but just high school.
So Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, and then various schools in the UK.
So you came to the UK in 2014?
Yes. Year 7.
And before that, you'd lived internationally. What nationality are you?
Australian. But I have dual citizenship, so also British.
Okay, yeah, excellent.
But I always say Australian first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think my mother would kill me.
Yeah. So, is your dad English?
Yes.
And it's quite common that, isn't it, that Australia, they're quite close together where you are, like Singapore, Malaysia. They're actually quite close together, aren't they? So
yeah.
Why did you move around so much?
I think ultimately from the beginning, my parents identified I was struggling in school, and at that point in time, I don't think the research was necessarily there in Australia that necessarily into schools specifically. So when my parents first identified I was struggling, they were told I was just lazy. My mum was like, this is not laziness. There's something else. We have family members in the UK that were dyslexic, and so she went, okay, I think the only option is that when my dad got a job opportunity in Singapore, that there's a lot more understanding surrounding learning difficulties in Singapore, and I could get better support there and ultimately better opportunities as well.
So how do the school systems compare from all those countries? Which one do you feel you benefited the most from?
Probably not, like none of them, to be totally honest. I
Yeah.
think the most support I got and where I learnt the most would be home education. If I had to pick, though, it would be university, ironically,
Yeah.
which is where you're left.
Self-directed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could learn the way I wanted, the way that suited me, and I had more resources, I think, than necessarily at school. And you are also dealing with young adults who are a little bit more aware of learning difficulties. So if you do go to have tuition, it's not something that you be picked on for. There's some level of understanding.
And how was it growing up, like moving around? Did you know that like it was just going to be part of your life for a while, or like you're moving countries? How did that make you feel growing up?
I mean, I didn't know any different. I just got picked up and told, we're moving here. How do you feel? Great. Don't know where that place is. I was told Singapore had some amazing noodles. I was like, sign me up.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's fucking
absolutely.
go.
Kind of like how I guess I ended up in Sheffield. I was like, I've never lived there. Let's go. I can find a flat in 2 days. But I didn't know any better, and it was amazing because I got to experience so many different cultures and so many different people with various perspectives. But it only probably hit me when I was a little bit older and realised that actually that life of growing up in various different countries is very, very much not normal, and got definitely a lot more grateful and appreciated for experiencing those opportunities growing up.
So when you land in the UK, 2014, these bountiful shores of Blighty, how was that for a culture shock?
Cold and wet. It was cold and wet, and I remember like swimming in the mud with my younger sister because I hadn't seen mud for probably just over 4 years because Singapore is just 100% humidity. But yeah, immense culture shock. We were staying in an Airbnb in the middle of fields in Kent, and we had just come from skyscrapers where you drive from one side of Singapore to the other in about 45 minutes. It was very, very different. And also at the time in Singapore, I was driving across the border. Well, obviously not myself driving, on a bus of other expat kids across the border to Malaysia for school. And then all of a sudden I was going to a small primary school in East Sussex, and it was completely different.
So your accent, is that from international school then?
Yeah, I would probably say so. Also, I think a lot of my parents being very aware of how I speak, making sure I speak properly to open opportunities as well. Society's not necessarily welcoming to...
There's nothing like the Queen's English, is there?
No, exactly. I can't complain, can you? Especially when I think you're told your doors are limited already. Maybe that's because of grades, struggling academically, making sure that, okay, if you speak well and you can hold yourself in an interview, then at least that's one thing less to kind of worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've come here, you've gone through the school system, you've been chewed up through the meat grinder, so to speak. But despite all that, you've not only managed to pass your GCSEs, get to college, get the grades necessary for university, and get a degree.
And soon to be masters.
You know, it is a testament to the fact that it is about finding a way for the person to digest the information.
Yeah.
And that does speak volumes to the fact that not everybody learns in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about studying English at Southampton. So what made you choose an academic subject like that after all your trials and tribulations?
So the absolutely hilarious thing is that I did not apply to study English, nor at Southampton. I applied for an integrated master's in veterinary physiotherapy at a specialist university in Chelmsford, Essex. And obviously got hit with the COVID A levels, didn't sit exams, so came out with grades that I wasn't expecting. And so unfortunately didn't get into the university of my choice. And it kind of forced me to rethink on clearing what I wanted. That path was no longer an option. And I thought, you know what? The next option for me was law, but I didn't feel academically that doing law straight away as a degree would be the smartest opportunity. Knowing what I know about myself and how I learn, I felt I would be shooting myself in the foot a little bit.
Mm.
So taking a step back, do English where you learn how to form an argument, how to write an essay, how to research, everything that underpins law as a subject before you then have to go and actually learn the content itself, which is hard enough alone. So hence why I phoned Southampton and I said, pretty, please, I do not fit your grades. Here are every single mock exam I have sat, every piece of evidence I can possibly think of. And they said no. And I phoned back 5 more times. And I said, pretty, please. They accepted me provisionally for biochemistry with a foundation year, which I used to make myself look a little bit more interesting. So when I phoned back and they went, oh, okay, we'll let the head of English or one of the senior lecturers call you to maybe have a chat and then we'll revisit. And the first thing she said was, why biochemistry? I had no interest in biochemistry, but it was a route into university and I genuinely would have done anything.
That's an
because of that,
yeah.
she accepted me onto the English degree.
Ah, okay.
So be relentless.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a couple of things to unpack there. Number one, you did college during COVID. So somebody who has the challenges that you do, obviously you put mechanisms in place to be able to navigate those, but they're still going to always be there, right? You know what I mean? Going from being in a classroom, being surrounded by everyone and being told you can't do that, you've got to sit in front of a laptop, which, by the way, laptops are connected to everything that's ever existed ever, which sometimes I do find quite distracting myself, right? So like that is quite...
Does not help.
Yeah, that doesn't help. There's this little generation of people who, you know, they went to school like that they've all done that during COVID, and you're all suffered in a way. Like you'd have to be a serious straight A shooter to have excelled during the COVID times, because wow,
what a world!
What world? Your bed's there, laptop's there, you know, everyone's the same. So well done getting through that. Number one.
Thank you.
Number two, the fact that you just wanted to get to university is very interesting, because like a lot of, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to uni, but it just kind of, I did photography at college and I was like, well, I'll just do that at uni then. You know what I mean? You don't often hear about people like, I just needed a degree.
Yeah.
So what did you need a degree for?
I was told, I think it was at age 11 or 12, that I would never get into a Russell Group university and that university was completely, absolutely out of the question for me. That I should just maybe, you know, keep working hard in school, but maybe think about other options and alternatives. And I really do not like being told I can't do something. And so I made it my life's mission, literally, to get into a Russell Group university, for better or for worse. So I think that's maybe where I started to change the way that I think about things, my perception, and got used to change, got used to being uncomfortable, and anything that was a potential opportunity, I either asked for it and sought it myself, or if it came about, even if it made me feel sick, I would say yes. And I do think that's probably what's got me to university. And I think then getting to that point, you fight so hard to just get to that undergraduate English degree, that you're kind of on an overdrive of what next, what can I be doing? And for me, it was always making my CV better, because that's what you need to apply for jobs. So attending events, being on committees, and just going from there.
So was law always the goal?
Not early on. Later on, absolutely, it was something I was interested in, but early on, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't like the education system because it didn't work for me personally, and I was in a fortunate position. So I knew that there were others out there that were in a very different situation to me, that I just didn't think that was fair. And so what kind of led me to law was the fact, how can you change something? It's usually legislation.
Yeah, very much
And
so.
that's what kind of led me to law ultimately.
So let's get me up to speed. You do your degree in English.
Yeah.
You pass with a
2-1.
excellent. That's the right.
Yeah.
That's the right.
It's the tick box.
That's the right one. They always used to say, if you get a first, you work too hard.
Yeah.
You get a 2-2, didn't work hard enough.
Yeah.
So the 2-1, beautiful.
Sweet spot.
And so you're working as a paralegal now. Is that in conjunction with your masters?
So I've just finished my master's, but when
Oh, I see.
I was in Nottingham, I was working full time and studying full time whilst in Nottingham. So I just moved 4 or 5 hours away from everything I'd known, friends and family, and what went from in-person learning for my master's in London went to online for the SQE1 prep course, which is the notoriously difficult solicitor qualifying preparation.
Is that like the bar?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but for solicitors.
For facilities,
Yeah.
yeah. And so what was that moment? We will go back to that, but that moment when uni ended, did you feel vindicated? Like to have known that everyone says you can't fucking do this,
Yeah.
and you're like, ah, I did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think one of the first things I said to my mum was, I actually put it in my acknowledgements, I think, for my dissertation, to one of my previous teachers, who was actually an English teacher, who said I'd never pass my English GCSE, or that I shouldn't take my English GCSE, I think is what she said. My parents were kind of told in year 10, at the end of year 10, it's like the worst possible point to have been told this, she probably shouldn't take her GCSEs. And I finished my degree, and I said to my mum, I want to write a letter to my previous school and basically say, hello, I'm proof of it is possible, and what you were doing and what you recommended is proof that you need to change something.
Telling students that they can't do something or shouldn't do something is wild.
I don't know how we could ever in society think that that is okay.
But it's ridiculous.
How? We're all different. We know that. Of course, we're going to have different minds, think differently. And I think our first thought, and my first thought was, that's amazing. You're going to have different strengths to me.
Like one of my best mates, right? I'm not ashamed to say it now because like he's 19, and the reason he's my best mate is like we train together at wrestling, right? And he is autistic, and he gets in his own head about stuff. He beats himself up. He holds himself to the highest of standards, you know, when we're training and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've just learned to communicate with him in such a way now that I can talk him down, tell him that you know it's okay. It's not gonna like he sort of got in his own head the other day. We were doing some exercises and some drills, and he couldn't get it right. And I just took him to one side and I was like, mate, I was like, why do we train? And he was like, to get good. I was like, but if you knew it all, you wouldn't have to train, would you? So you don't know it all because we're training. You know what I mean? That's what we're here for. And the only way you're ever gonna know it all is by training. You know what I mean? And he was just like,
Yeah.
And he messaged me. He always puts the best stories on Instagram, like tags everyone. He's like, Lee is my brother in arms and everything. And I know he is 19, and it's just because of this bond we've got at wrestling. And his mum loves me to death as well. It's class.
Aww.
So I know that it's just about finding a way to digest the information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you get used to that at school, but then that's a whole other thing to get used to when you're in the workplace. And that's something I'm definitely learning a lot about myself at the moment, is that self-awareness. I do hold myself to an unbelievably high standard because I know what it's taken to get to this point, and I know where I want to go. It also means when I get feedback, I will take it very seriously, and sometimes too seriously, and that can actually be to your own detriment. So taking a step back and understanding that feedback is obviously very important. I always want feedback. I always want criticism. But let's not ruin your whole day.
Yeah. Like, don't talk to me like I'm a cunt.
Exactly.
You know?
The world is not going to bend.
I don't think that's a learning disability thing. I think that's a worldwide thing.
Oh,
Please
yeah.
don't talk to me like that. You know,
Absolutely.
you should just be kind to everyone, because you don't know if
Yeah.
somebody like yourself's going to take it in a way that you will.
Exactly. And that, I think you said something really important, which I do think is probably an issue in various work areas, not just law, but applications. Students are so aware that you need top grades. And I do think there is this pressure that you can never have failed. But I read this thing the other day and it was, how can you possibly succeed if you've never failed? You can't, because to succeed, you have to learn through failure.
It's like good and evil, you know, up
Yeah.
and down, left and right, black and white.
We should be praising the failures that we've had to get to where we are today. And I don't think that applications, maybe for training contracts, vacation schemes, jobs in general, reflects that. I do think that is something we need to maybe speak a little bit more about, is how we actually got to where we are and those failures, because that builds character, that builds a person.
I mean, foundation years are a good start,
Mm.
aren't they, for obviously those who don't necessarily
Yeah.
have the grades, and they give you the opportunity to prove that you can do it, you know, you build it up and that kind of stuff. But I just think that there just could be more done in general. But slowly catching monkey, eh?
Yeah, it'll happen eventually. I think we're learning more and more every year. Change slowly happens, but yeah, maybe a little bit faster would be great.
It'd be great, yeah, because it's like, right now, you look at where we are right now in terms of understanding opportunities, and, you know, the way language is used to describe like conditions, all that kind of stuff, where it is now. If you look at that 20 years ago, when I was 16, right, and then that's gone in the blink of an eye. Like, it really has, and the difference is night and day. At this present moment in time, it feels like there's not a lot changing, but when I go, wow, 20 years ago, that was crazy work. And it's just a case of having to let these gaps in time pass, because it's always only going to be over 5, 10, 15 years or whatever, but they come fast.
Yeah, I think the issue we've got now as well is so many people were told they had to go to university. Everyone then went to university, and you then have that pressure, like we were just saying, of needing to succeed, have the best grades. But I do think, whether you're from a different background, whether that's lower income, minority, or neurodiversity, what happens to those people that don't fit the tick box criteria, because they deserve to be there. They may just have a different story, and my gosh, can maybe not fit it into 150 words in a square box.
So half the stuff that you can get a job in now, you don't even need a degree for. One of my friends is one of the most successful events videographers worldwide. He's on tour with like massive techno DJs and whatnot, right? He's got a degree in maths. Right, he just picked up a camera one day for a laugh, and then turned out he was dead good at it. It was like, wicked, mate, cheers. You know what I mean? And I've done it for 16 years and worked really hard at
I
it.
essentially put myself into 3 years of debt just to kind of tick a box, essentially. And when you kind of sit back and say that, and I did look at my student loan as well, and that doesn't make it any better, but
in an academic field, though, having those letters next to your name definitely helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me,
it's not suits, you know.
No.
People just like, oh, I know it all. It's like, and you can learn it, but you do need to have studied it intrinsically, don't you?
Yeah. I think there just needs to be more awareness and understanding of doors that could open for people in law that shouldn't have to necessarily go through the non-law route for that reason. Absolutely. There's so many advantages to doing a non-law background. There's so many people that come from a science background, and all that knowledge is very much needed within law. But I think from a neurodiversity perspective, I felt for me personally that the only way of getting into law was by studying English. And I do think that that's something we maybe need to take a little bit of a look at within our education system.
more direct paths and
Yeah.
like help from the start and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. A little bit of a progression path, knowing like this is how it can be done and having it laid out before you start.
Yeah, I may not have 3 A stars at A level to get into a law degree. So, what other alternatives are there? Because actually, university education I found far easier than I did my A levels just because I think a bit
It's a
differently.
cakewalk, wasn't it? Really, in reality,
Mm.
like uni, just because even though there's a lot of pressure on it, it was still very relaxed because it's like do it or don't. We don't care.
Yeah.
Like, you know
Yeah,
what I
that's very
mean?
true.
Yeah.
You fail or succeed and it is fully your own responsibility.
So when what was the what went into going what went into making the decision to do a master's in London? Because student loans don't go far in London.
Yeah, I think my master's was about £17,500. And I remember I was at a careers fair at Southampton and I spoke to the University of Law and I said, I really want to go to the University of Law. How can I do it without like funding it entirely myself? The only way of doing it was do a PGDL, which is the law conversion, paired with the SQE1 prep course, which I'd have to do anyway. And it makes it a master's. That way you can get government funding, but you'd still have to make up the difference because for master's funding, they will only give you so much. And like you say, London is quite expensive. But for me, my family lives in Kent, so I could hop on a 50, 60-minute train into London, wouldn't have to pay rent. So that was one less thing to worry about and just focus on my studies ultimately. And I think being in London, you're the hub of law. My university was opposite Slaughter and May. We had Linklaters round the corner. You're surrounded by all the top law firms, and one of the most important things I've learnt to get me where I am now is networking. So study where you can learn from the people around you, meet them, build your network, because that network's going to open opportunities.
It doesn't matter what your career path is, what your profession is. It's all networking when it comes to high levels. Everyone's like, "Oh, just apply and work hard." It only gets
Not
you
enough.
so far. Yeah, it's like that might work in retail,
Yeah.
right? But when it comes to these jobs which are so competitive and cutthroat, it's all about who you know, what they're doing. Because you might make friends with someone who went to uni and then 5 years down the line they've opened their own law firm, and you're like, "All right, mate, guess what?" You know what I mean? And that is so important. Like my university time went by like that, and the main piece of advice that I took from that was from a guest lecturer. He said to me, do not discredit anybody that you meet, whether that's now, life, whatever, because I once got asked to do a catalogue for this builder's yard because he's a photographer, and he went, yeah, I'll do it. And then when it comes to him building an exhibition, just gave them a shout and they did it dead cheap. So it's just about like you literally have to be switched on, be able to talk, say yes to pretty much everything, like coming on podcasts, and just see where it takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me as well, I knew applying to vacation schemes, I wasn't necessarily going to get them because I didn't have the academic portfolio, and so you really had to force your own opportunities. And so it still surprises me actually when I speak to students now and I tell them I have sent thousands, and I probably could go into the hundreds of thousands of LinkedIn messages just saying, hi, this is my name, this is my story, pretty please, can I have some work experience? And if you can't offer that, I completely understand, but 2 pieces of advice, because it just starts the conversation and you can build on it from then, and you then build a relationship and that person follows you, and then suddenly you slowly kind of get to find opportunities. And that's ultimately how I got majority of my work experience. I meet so many students who say, oh my gosh, you have so much work experience. That's amazing. How did you get it? Very few of it was formal applications. It was just relentlessly sending LinkedIn messages, and a very, very vast majority of them being ignored. And being okay with that.
Yeah.
And just going, that's fine, send another one, and keep going, and just getting used to rejection. And
look where it's got you now, eh? You're an assistant paralegal in real estate energy. So When you got that yes from CMS, what was it like?
I screamed.
When I got the job here, I was going, yeah.
I screamed and I cried and I phoned my parents and just genuinely could not believe it. It was my dream firm. It meant so much to me just to be able to get the job. And no, it's not a training contract, but it's an assistant paralegal job. It's a foot in the door to learning so much more about the area that I want to be in and actually learning what paralegals do day to day, because ultimately that leads to what a solicitor does day to day. So unbelievable happiness and also relief of, oh my gosh, okay, I have actually done it. All that rejection, that stress, those LinkedIn messages, relentless events being attended, never stopping in third year, being on committees, it all was worth it.
What a feeling after all that behind you as well, and then bang, there you go.
Yeah, there was definitely a bit of relief in there,
Yeah.
but we still got a way to go.
Wow. We're always learning, always pushing, aren't we? And,
Yeah.
everything in life is a progression. So for the layman, such as myself, can you break your job down simply?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I have my own caseload of files that I'm given to with a supervising solicitor, and those are transfers, leases, deeds, so documents that then document the land rights for things like electricity substations, underground cables, overhead cables. So those big green boxes that you see on the side of the road, you probably pass hundreds of them every single day and probably don't notice them until I've now said to you substation. I deal with securing and documenting the land rights for an IDNO or a DNO. So that could be previously someone like National Grid, UKPN, SSE. I previously worked with a range of IDNOs and DNOs, but my job now is just focused on one client specifically.
And why is that important? Why is it important to be able to secure those land rights, and why do we need such a very specific area of law in the real world?
Well, we need electricity to function. I think it's a really growing topic at the moment, is growing the grid.
I thought you were gonna say I actually think electricity is really important, and I was gonna laugh my head off because I was like, I walked right into that one, to be fair. But
I mean, it is important, but I think growing the grid so that we can have more electricity getting to more places, especially with the fast growing AI requiring things like data centers. In order to have all of those things, we have to have land rights secured, to have the cables, to have the substations. So that's obviously requires someone to do it, and that does fall largely on paralegals with supervising solicitors. And I think that is an amazing growing area for people going from university to law, because it's something that I didn't know about when I finished university. I just knew I wanted to work in energy law. I didn't know that that was utility specifically until I entered it and realised that actually it's so incredibly interesting, because to do the massive, whether that be carbon capture projects or data centres or solar farms, you start with how to document and secure land rights for your client for just a substation or an underground cable, and that is the crux of everything else, really.
So what does it look like? You've got a case. Give us. Obviously, I know you can't talk about specifics, but let's make a hypothetical. How does it work? Is it like I could be an AI company? I come to you and say I need to build a data center here.
So pretend you're an AI company. You'd go to the likes of the National Grid and say, I need some electricity and it's not currently powering because this is a brand new data center. They would then go, okay, well, we want to lay some cables. We're going to make a plan, a legal plan, so that we can show legals where these cables are going to go, where the substation's going to go, map it all out for construction, and then instruct solicitors like my firm, or there's a number of firms now that do it, but myself, who will then get the matter on their desk, and I then ultimately start at instruction. We do things like conflicts, make sure there's no conflict of interest with other clients, start drafting the document, and then liaising with your solicitors, because ultimately the electricity company needs to liaise with your solicitor to go, how are we going to document these land rights? Because you may not want someone accessing your property 24/7 without, say, a representative, or, you know, if you want to plant some trees. I think actually that's an example my parents have at the moment. They bought a property, there's an underground cable in their garden. How do you then plant trees? Because there's terms in those documents that say you can't plant them a certain distance either side, because the roots can wrap around the cables. And that can then damage the cables, which means your AI data center's not getting any electricity.
So you could basically own some land. Someone could approach you and say, "Oh, can we please put a cable through here?" That person could agree to it, then move out, and then if someone moves in, you're still beholden to that.
Depends on the document.
That is wild.
Depends on the document. So my parents at the moment are now going, okay, we have an underground electricity cable in our back garden, and because of the document that was used to secure the land rights, that interest is there, and it stays for whether we move out and the next person that moves in, unless we want to pay to get that cable dug up and diverted, then it's staying put.
Bonkers.
And we're not paying to have it diverted. We'd much rather leave it under the ground. And that's what I kind of sit on the other side of this, rather than being, say, the solicitors my parents would instruct to go, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Stewart don't want the cable. Mr. Electricity Company, can you come and move it?
That's crazy that you've ended up in the flipping sector, and now your parents having an issue with it. That's actually wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes me see it from a different perspective and a different side, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, no, I sit on the side of going, okay, well, I need to speak with your solicitors and secure the land rights for maybe having an overhead cable on the road. How are we going to have that? And putting it all into a document for the lovely land registry.
Life has a funny way
Yeah,
of bringing everything together, doesn't it?
it is. And it's something I never realised was... It's silly, because like now I've told you, you go, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Of course, it's like if you buy a house, you have a document where everything's secured, written down, that's saying that's yours. So why wouldn't we have that for a substation? We can't power or energize these data centers if there's no land rights, really. We shouldn't be. We might do, but...
So how does your job and expanding the grid, how does expanding the grid and net zero come into your job?
So because we are ultimately looking at securing new rights, so it's new connections for electricity, that secures land rights to get those new connections. That's where I come in. So expanding the grid, you need a new connection, but to get that new connection, you need the land rights over it so that the cable can, one, be there and electricity can operate through that cable. That's where myself and other paralegals, and then ultimately the supervising solicitors, come in. If you can't grow the grid without the legals that say the cables can be there and the substations can be there, without actually having us to negotiate the terms, draft the documents, and ultimately get it through to completion and registration.
So you're essentially like making sure that when a substation's built, it's within legal parameters.
So it's allowed to be there. Yeah. You know, we're not planning lawyers. We don't deal with the planning permission. That's for the client to go and deal with themselves. But for us, it's understanding that that substation, for us, we're an electricity company. We don't own the land. So we need to liaise with the landowner to say, can you please grant us the rights so that we can have a substation here, which will then be full of electricity to then energize, say, your data center through electricity cables that may go through your car park. But we have to document those land rights, because that land isn't ours, but the substation is our property. So it's all about carefully
Aha.
documenting.
So how does where does net zero come into this with you? You have
Net
to make sure that you're uh, within like the environmental factors and everything is compliant.
Well, ultimately, to work towards more, toward, in order to work towards net zero, we need more electricity.
Mm-hmm.
But for that, you need the new connections so that we have the electricity supplying the vast majority, whether that's Scotland, Liverpool, Sheffield. If those new connections aren't there, the grid isn't growing, the electricity can't be supplied. We're then more reliant on the likes of oil, gas. Electricity is very interesting. I started it thinking it was just a foot in the door, and actually I've come to have a massive appreciation for electricity. And when you have those power cuts, it's not straightforward.
Yeah, tell me about it. Listen, we've dealt with a few air council digging through cables,
Yeah.
national grid just going, whoa.
We don't know. No, and that's it. And I think it's so interesting to see how people do secure these land rights and why they're there, and why when you drive to Tesco's, there is a big green box in the middle of the car park. It's there for a reason. Someone has carefully thought about why that substation needed to be there, and there was negotiation over probably that exact location. So
So what surprised you when you first started working for CMS? You know, you came in first day, first week. What was like surprising? Because were you really like, I thought this was going to be boring, but it's dead good. You know, stuff like that.
So I was lucky that the job that I'd come from, I did for about 6 months, the same area, working with lots of IDNOs and DNOs. But it was a regional firm. It wasn't a massive international law firm. So it's a very, very different office. Walking through those doors for the first time, I was sweating. But the thing that surprised me the most is genuinely the culture. You know, companies, law firms, they market a lot about diversity, inclusion, welcoming culture, having that training and really supporting their employees to be the best individuals that they can be, regardless of if you have pink hair, if you have dyslexia, what background you come from. Those differences, they realize, is what makes you stronger as an individual and an employee. And for me, it genuinely was such an incredible surprise to realize that that was actually the case. And it felt amazing because I sat down actually with, we've got a neurodiversity committee. So think of it as a society, but at work. It's a neurodiversity society. And I spoke my first couple weeks at work to one of the members, and hearing her story about how CMS had just supported her. We have things like neurodiversity passports. So instead of having a conversation every single time about these are things I struggle with and these are the adjustments I need, we just have a little passport on our system that your new partner that you're now working with, because you've moved teams, can see, and you don't have to have that awkward conversation. You don't need to advertise to the world in the workplace and have that awkward conversation every single time, unless you want to have that conversation. And I think that that is the thing that gets me the most, is it gives you the option. If you want to sit down and have that conversation, there is 100% the place to do it.
Right, why?
But there's also the place not to.
Why should it be this thing that's like, look at me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you should have the agency and like over it yourself.
Yeah.
And use it as a, you know, I have bipolar disorder type 2. Sometimes I have like rapid cycling stuff, and I feel the need to talk about that when I want to.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell anyone. Like, and you know, it's not kind of like, it's not the same. I don't have to kind of go, oh, you know, it's not like on my Tinder profile, it's not like that. So,
Well, this is it.
yeah. But like knowing that some, you know, because there will be concessions made for people such as yourself,
Yeah.
like for learning and whatnot. But knowing that it's dealt with like in private and respectfully,
Yeah.
that's massive, because that must make you feel like respected and seen, but also like, cool, I'm in charge of this.
Yeah. It was
not on display like,
yeah.
I have to, you know.
If you want to have that conversation, fine, but you don't need to have it every single time if you choose not to. I think for me, it was being told, we can genuinely offer you pretty much any adjustment you feel you want or need. You tell us and we'll find a way to give you that adjustment if you feel that it's something that will benefit you. And that genuinely surprised me, and having that community to speak to and hear about their experiences in the workplace was, it was so reassuring, and it was so welcoming to know, okay, I do think a bit differently. Maybe it'll take me a little bit longer to process things some days. Maybe I need to have a meeting and have it recorded so I have a transcript so that I can put all of my attention to listening rather than noting down, because I struggle with hearing multiple instructions all at once verbally and retaining it. I do need some of those instructions written down or having a follow-up email. Having those possibilities and those options allows you to do your job better, and not having the support and the culture in place does drastically make a difference. And it's not a nice place to be in when you don't have that support, that culture and opportunity.
It's very heartwarming and reassuring to hear that there's workplaces out there
Mm.
that, you know, do what they say, and it's not performative.
Mm.
Because I've worked in a place that I'm not allowed to talk about that's very performative, and yeah, it shows,
Mm.
you know, and the workplaces that do take care of your mental well-being, they need to be lauded, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I'm just so incredibly grateful to be where I am now, because I get to actually enjoy my job, because there are those systems in places to let me learn. Whereas my concern previously was that, how do you learn if you don't feel like you're in the environment where that is possible? Because it goes back to that thing of being a square hole, and you're a round peg and you ain't fitting in it. It's not going in. You can try force it, it's not going to. You need an environment that goes, what peg are you? We that anything.
Bigger hole.
What do you need?
Bigger hole.
Yeah, we'll fit. It's fine. What do you need? We'll get you that,
You get any
and
pig you want.
we can learn together, and that's fine. And that's so incredibly important, and probably could go into universities, I think, a little bit more.
You got offered your job while you're in the middle of your masters, so you didn't even have to finish it, really, you know.
Mm.
So how did that feel, knowing that it's like, God, I've already got a job. That's crazy.
I was really stressing at the time that I wasn't going to get a job, and so I was submitting about 4 applications a week. Bearing in mind each application takes about 4 to 5 hours. So alongside studying, I was stress applying, and initially that job, I actually got rejected.
Well, you weren't going to let a little thing like that stop you, know, were you?
No, so I sent them a lovely email, and I said, "Why? Why have you rejected me? On what? What grounds? I want some feedback." And they said, "You live too far. We don't think you we don't think you can commute." And I said, "That's funny. I was never planning on commuting. Um, would you rethink if I moved to Nottingham?" And they were like, "Well, yeah, absolutely. We'll get you through to an interview." And that's when I was then
That's great.
considered.
That's crazy. Like, they just made an assumption.
So many places do it though, and I think it's probably from the security perspective of how many people these days would just up and move for a job. I think it speaks volumes to people's minds, perspectives. Now, like, so many people, graduates that I speak to, say, well, I don't want to move out of my hometown, or I just want to work in London. And I think for me, I realised I just wanted any opportunity. And a lot of people do, I think I have been shocked by the fact that are surprised. A lot of people that I work with have lived in Sheffield for, like, from a paralegal level, have just lived in Sheffield most of their life. I am one of the few that have gone, yeah, I'm from Kent. And I think that's why when I got the opportunity, I moved heaven and earth to make sure that I moved to Nottingham, and I continued studying and I made it work.
So that's why you moved. That's why you moved up north while studying. It was like, it's like, right, I'm gonna get this job.
Yeah.
University, I can.
Make it work.
Yeah, and you made it work. So
Yeah.
why Nottingham to Sheffield?
So CMS, I actually did work experience for around my time of, I think it was just before my master's. I did work experience. It was for 3 days, and it was the most incredible 2 or 3 days I've ever had. But I knew getting into the London office would be incredibly difficult, and actually found that across the sector as a whole that there were more opportunities up north for people in law who have just graduated. So CMS did not have an office in Nottingham, but they did have one in Sheffield. So when the opportunity came up, they said you can work in Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Liverpool, or Sheffield. And I said, yep, send me to Sheffield because that's the closest to where I am now. And I haven't lived there before. I think it'd be an amazing experience, and it's an amazing office to work in. We have loads of paralegals, and so a lot of people to learn from. So I wanted to be in a big office, and I wanted to work at that firm, and so here I am at the James.
Then what was your expectations of Sheffield like?
Genuinely had none. I'd heard such mixed reviews. I was slightly terrified and also incredibly excited. But I didn't really have any expectation because I'd never been. I'd never even visited Sheffield. The first time I visited was for my interview, and then for Christmas dinner when I came to look at a flat here. But genuinely,
Oh yeah,
yeah, genuinely, absolutely love it. I didn't realise how much culture, this sounds really silly, but the diverse culture in Sheffield, it is so multicultural, and I think it is amazing, and I absolutely love it. Equally though, it still has green spaces, which as a horsey person is really important to me. I love being in the countryside, so having open parks, being able to just walk over the road and have the park is amazing, to be able to go and run in, just have a nice walk. So
it's a really nice like mixed bag of stuff, isn't it?
yeah.
Especially where we are here.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
You've got Devonshire Green, Division Street, all in the same like little area. It just kind of goes from park to quirky shops, restaurants.
You could not be any more central if you tried.
I genuinely think we are pretty much on the.
Oh yeah. It's a lovely 3-minute walk to work. You've got coffee shops, cafes. It's, terrible for my bank account because I'm buying coffee every 5 minutes, but it keeps me going and it allows me to be in the place I want to be. I could not have run a half marathon if we did not have this gym in this building.
Well, there you go. So do you feel like you're building a life here, or are you very much just on holiday here, sort of thing?
Both. I never stop. So I have never felt like I moved somewhere and I'm building a life. I think as a whole, yes, of course, building a life, but I don't draw that down to a location specifically. I think I just keep going, enjoy where I am, be where I want to be, and I don't care if that looks different, traveling from Kent to Sheffield every other week.
So
it makes me happy.
So I suppose you'll just basically move around as and when you want, really.
Yeah. Very happy to stay in Sheffield for years and years and years to come, may never leave. Equally, if I get told tomorrow, hey, do you want to move to the Edinburgh office or the London office or the Liverpool office, bite their hand off, because I think it'll be a cool, exciting experience.
Well, we have got the James Liverpool as well, so
why not? Why not?
And north versus south, right? How real is the divide? Like how
so real? It is so real.
I used to have this saying, right? I'm from Manchester, right? And so I used to say anything past Wilmslow is the south. People used to get so pissed off.
I've genuinely gone from like as south as you can get as well, like Kent to Sheffield. Big difference. No, I do think it's very, very real. I think people say they're a lot friendlier up north. I do think that's true. generally. But I think that just again comes to experience of where you live. I think down south people are so focused. A lot of people obviously work in London, and for those that have been to London, it's like going through an airport. You're focused on where you're going, nothing around you. Obviously that has positives, but it does mean I think you kind of forget where you are. You forget to look around, and so you don't bump into the stranger in the coffee shop and talk about a wacky ice vanilla spice matcha coconut latte that you've had, Whereas I think up north there is an appreciation for, yeah, we all work, but we also take a minute to look around where we are and meet those strangers, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost expected that you're gonna get spoken to by someone in the street when you're in the north of England.
Yeah.
I was riding my bike up a hill the other day, and someone just decided that they needed to shout, "You need a battery on that bike, mate." Cheers.
I have weirdly found myself, like I went to London a week or two ago. Oh yeah, for my half marathon. How could I forget? I found myself smiling at like everybody. And I think that's just because here you walk past someone, it's like, oh, morning.
Yeah.
You do that in London and people are like, are you okay?
What do you want? Like
Yeah.
that? What?
Are you trying to mob me? Like,
It's crazy.
it is,
Yeah.
but no, I wouldn't change it.
But you've very much got a balance of life where you spend time in both halves of the UK, up at north and south, and you got 3 horses at home in Kent. And
Yes.
so tell us about that. And like, you actually, what does competing up to BE 100 mean?
So that was when I was about 18 years old. So it's up to 1 meter in height, show jumps, cross country, and then you do a dressage test. So it's kind of like your triathlon for people, but for horses.
No human dressage then?
No, going on a pole and dancing around a grass arena.
Some of those geezers that were around on all fours, though, they can really move.
Oh, they can move. Massive respect, because could not be me. No, I absolutely love horses, and I do think it saved me in a lot of respects because I was a little bit different growing up, which was fine. I was not ashamed of it, but I also needed a space when you're however many hours of the day in a school environment where there are those pressures to fit into one place and you can't fit in, going home and being able to actually be yourself and not worry about that and have those creative outbursts, I think was really important to me. So I found, maybe that's the ADHD in me, but I found a lot of enjoyment in working towards something. And for me, that was training and competitions. Was I the most successful? Absolutely not. They're off, like, by far, definitely an amateur, but I loved it and I enjoy it. And, definitely it's been a whirlwind. There's been some absolute downs, but horses get me through it. I enjoy it and I wouldn't change it, but definitely has been tough at times.
Sounds like it's a massive part of your life then.
Oh, huge.
Just lovely. We all need something like outside of. I say it pretty much every time I have a guest on. I say the same thing. We need 3 hobbies: one to keep us fit, one to keep us creative, and one to make us a little bit of money if possible. And I just find it's so important just to be able to just have that going and have the option to do it, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, man, and it's a productive thing, creative, then go for it. Like, you want a LARP, you know.
Do what makes you happy.
Yeah, literally do what makes you happy. Let's talk. How about though the injury? How did it happen? What came about? How did that? How did you deal with something like that?
Yeah, so I think for me that was around 2018, probably one of the most difficult experiences just because it was so out of my control. I new partnership with a horse who I still have at home. She's 18 years old now. I left her with someone that I trusted, and unfortunately things went wrong whilst I was away for whatever reason. came back to a completely different horse, one that was fit and ready to go when we left, and when we came back was requiring vets being told we don't think she can even travel on a horse box because she's physically and mentally now just not there. So a lot of money later, a lot of tears, a lot of blood trying to deal with behavioural and physical issues, then kind of came to the decision to retire her. Um, Experiencing that was really difficult because we went from chasing dreams and goals and slowly achieving them one step at a time to literally overnight that all being taken away, and horses are expensive, not in the position to just go out and buy another one. Props to you if you are, but for me that
Fine, they're
wasn't.
expensive, man.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't an opportunity for me at the time. So and also do really genuinely do it for the partnership. So I did what I could to try and help her come round, but I just found she wasn't enjoying it. And so, yeah, we made the decision to retire her, and eventually we did get another one, and I tried my best, and unfortunately partnerships don't always necessarily work and things go wrong along the way, whether that's people you trust or horses getting injured. And I think maybe perhaps that's where also my resilience has come from, is just focusing on what you do best, and when it goes wrong, whether that's learning from it or knowing that it's redirecting you to something else and just focusing on that.
Well, I think that they're just such a magnificent beast,
Mm.
and it takes a lot to be able to control one,
Yeah.
and you have to be vulnerable because they're in charge, really.
Yeah.
All it
Yeah.
takes is one thing to spook them,
Mm.
and you're flying off and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So you have to basically have ultimate trust in this animal that they can't speak English,
No.
doesn't understand you. It's more there's like this metaphysical sort of
Mm.
bond, isn't it? And the trust, and you have to just
Yeah. Unspoken language, I
yeah,
think.
vibes.
Genuinely vibes. If anyone has watched, there is an amazing video on YouTube of the hip hop dressage horse. And I think it is a true testament to that unspoken language and relationship, because horses, they're not machines. I think there's a lot of parallels that you can draw between Formula One and the equestrian disciplines for various reasons. But the one thing you can't is they are not machines. They're not a car. They're not that incredible engine that is full of metal. It's a physical animal with nerves and emotions. And unfortunately, it does get abused within the sport, but equally has faced an immense amount of criticism and social media trolls. That, yes, there's definitely a space for we need to reevaluate the sport and how we're looking after horses and competing and how we can regulate the sport. However, there's also needs to be a focus on how incredible the sport is at the moment and some of the amazing people that are there.
There's a whole episode in your
Oh,
horse tribulation. There's definitely like everything you've done with horses. There's just like this. I love that about you so much, by the way, because like it just it very much echoes the way my life has gone. Right, I've gone from working in finance myself. I say finance. I worked in a bank. It's different,
yeah.
It's
Finance is finance.
finance is
We're a
finance.
finance bro. So
Yeah,
we can accept it. It's fine.
yeah. So I was a banker for a little bit, and I had all these different like paths that I've gone down, and then being creative kind of came to me, and every single facet of my life I was gone, this is it, this is my calling. And then it's like 2 weeks later,
Pivot.
big time. And I'm a pro wrestler. Like, so it's like, what is going on? Like, what's going to happen next season?
Yeah. If you'd asked me last year, everything that's happened this year, half marathon, doing a podcast, moving to Sheffield, working at my dream farm, I would have laughed. I would have absolutely laughed. Let alone if you told me all of that 10, 15 years ago, to the girl in school failing her exams, saying to her teachers all she wants to do is play sport and eat lunch. It's a very, very different life. But yeah, I do think it is a testament to the importance of perception and just taking a minute to think about the things that we think are negative, like rejection, change being terrifying, is just things that I've tried to learn how to love and embrace, because without those things, you don't get to where you want to go. And it's not a nice feeling, but it's a really nice feeling when you get to where you want to go.
Well, it's very much testament, whether it's physical, mental. Hard work is not meant to feel good while you're doing it.
Mm.
It's what you get after it.
Mm.
You reap what you sow.
Absolutely.
You know? And this idea that you go from degree to career in a straight line is nonsense.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
No. And
well, very rarely. It does for some, but
yeah, but it's even, there's always, even if it's a, I'm not saying there's outliers to the rule, but obviously there's going to be, you're going to be like your anomalies of people that just go, right, all A's.
Yeah.
Smashed them in then a first and a
Yeah.
straight to an amazing job. Don't get me wrong, my friend Sam is one of them. You lucky bastard. Right? He is model, fit, attractive, PhD in biomedical science and sustainable engineering. Right?
Gosh.
He's just ripped and like everything, and I just like we grew up together. Like
I love you, but I dislike you at the same time.
So basically, yeah, it does happen, but it's most people don't, and
it's not the standard.
It's not the standard, and your story is what that middle bit looks like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think a lot of people could learn from that and not only be a bit more, learn a bit about resiliency from you. And it being resilient doesn't mean man up.
Yeah, no.
It's not
and it doesn't happen overnight.
Resiliency is crying and crying and crying until you can't cry anymore.
Yeah.
But still getting up and doing it. And crying over something's not manning up, is it? It's just, no, exactly. That I hate that term so much.
It's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah. Resiliency is doing things in spite of I'm going to say this again because it's a good point, so I'm going to say an insecure word. What in despite of right. I was getting all passionate about it as well, so I'm going to keep it out. But resiliency is doing things in spite of adversity.
Yeah, 100%.
You know? And it's not, I'm just going to, just doing it despite that, despite letting yourself feel.
Yeah.
And look where it can get you.
When I moved to Nottingham, tell you a secret now, I cried nearly every single week for 6 months because I'd moved away from everyone and everything I knew. And it was tough and incredibly lonely and isolating. But I knew I needed to do it to get me to where I am now. And at some point, there would be a better day or where I wanted to be. And now I'm sat in the James doing a podcast with you in Sheffield.
Speaking on panels for universities, you know.
Yeah, what a wild experience. Never would have thought I would have done this or that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all up from here, you know.
Yeah, can only go up.
It might go like this, but it's going to end up there.
My favourite thing growing up was Miley Cyrus's song The Climb. And genuinely, if I was ever to get a tattoo, it would be of mountains, because I think the one thing that I hold today is my journey, my life. It's all a climb. You can go up a mountain, but the next one's going to be a little bit of a downhill. But you've got to go up the mountain to get to where you want to go. You can't go down to get to the top.
Well, it's this, like people think that like progress is there to there. Like, no, but do you know the Valley of Disappointment?
Yeah.
Oh God. I think I've been there for about 20 years, so got to be coming up some.
It's going to be a great peak when I get to the top.